Hi, this is James Maroney from collegetreasure.com, and in this video we're going to walk you step by step through filing the 2011-2012 FAFSA. One of the most common questions people ask is, do we need to have our taxes completed before we file the FAFSA? And the answer is no. You need to file it as soon as possible after January 1st, and you want to file it on an estimated basis. Then when your taxes are done, you can correct and update the information. Before we get started, you will need dates of birth for the students and parents, Social Security numbers for the student and parents, a copy of your 2009 tax return, your last paycheck stubs for 2010, and a summary of the assets in the parents' and students' names. After you've gathered that information, go to www.fafsa.ed.gov. Again, that's www.fafsa.ed.gov. Once there, click the Start Here button in the middle of the page. Once you've clicked Start Here, you'll be prompted to enter the student's first name, the student's last name, the student's Social Security number, and the student's date of birth. One important thing to note is that throughout the FAFSA, whenever it says you or your, it is referring to the student. Whenever it says your parent, it is referring to the student's parent and most likely the person who is filling out the FAFSA form. After you've clicked Next, you'll be given the opportunity to double check this information. I would take the time to make sure you've entered the correct Social Security number, as if you discover it later on, often you will just need to start over again. After you've verified the information, you will be asked to choose the year of the FAFSA that you are filing. For freshmen entering in this coming fall, you will choose Start the 2011-12 FAFSA. Next, you will be asked to choose a password. This password is only used in the event that you need to save the FAFSA and return to it before submitting the information. Once you've submitted the FAFSA, you will no longer need this password, and you will actually use your PIN number to log in. The next page is a general introduction page with links to various resources to help you file your FAFSA. One important thing to note is always use either the Next or Previous button when navigating and not the back button from your browser. Using the back button from your browser could cause you to lose all of the information you've submitted. The next screen just collects basic demographic information like address, phone number, and the number of years at your current address. If the student is a male, they'll want to know if he is registered for the Selective Service. If he's over 18 and has not yet registered for Selective Service, you can check a box asking them to register the student. Just a reminder that all of these questions pertain to the student and not to the parent. The parent questions will come later on. So on the previous page, when they asked marital status, they were referring to the student's marital status. You may want to hit Previous and check to be certain you had selected single, as if you selected married, that could cause problems later on. Next, you will want to answer all the questions on this page. Are you a U.S. citizen? When you begin college in the 2011-2012 school year, what will be your high school completion status? So for a high school student, high school senior now, they would select high school diploma. When you begin the 2011-2012 school year, what will be your grade level? For incoming freshmen, it will be never attended college first year. What degree or certificate will you be working on? So it should be a first associate's or first bachelor's. And then I would recommend you check yes for are you interested in being considered for work study, as you can always turn it down later on. The next questions pertain to the highest level of education attained by the parents. Again, remember it says completed, so if you have some college, the highest level completed would be high school. The next screen is collecting new information this year, the name of the high school the student attends. I would leave the name blank and just enter in the city where your high school is located, the state where your high school is located, and click confirm. I've had some problems with searching by the name of the school, as you need an exact match. If you put in the city and state, you will be able to select the high school from a list on the next screen. Once you've confirmed and added your high school, you will be asked to enter in the colleges where you would like this information sent. You can send it to up to 10 colleges at one time. If you're applying to more than 10 schools, you'll have to wait until this is processed and then do a correction where you will release the information to the additional schools. You can either enter in the codes from the college's websites or search for the codes now. One thing to watch out for is some schools have more than one code. Typically, a graduate program code starts with an E. So if there's more than one code and one of them starts with an E, that's probably not the code you're looking for. You will want to verify the codes to make sure this information gets where it belongs on time. It is not enough just to search for the school's names. Once they come up, you'll need to click the Add link next to the programs that you would like to add to your account. Once the school has been added to your application, you will need to select your housing plans for each school, either on campus, off campus, which means in an apartment but not with your parents, or with your parents, in which case you may be commuting to school. The next screen is used to determine the dependency status of the student who is filing this application. For most students who are graduating from high school in 2011 and currently living at home with their parents, the answer to most of these questions will be no. If you answer yes to even one of these questions, the student is deemed to be an independent student. As you click no, you will notice that additional questions will come up until you've answered all of the questions. This screenshot gives us a look at all of the questions used to determine a student's dependency status. There are 11 questions in total. The next screen gives you the results of your dependency status determination. If you are determined to be a dependent student, you are required to enter in your parents' information. Every school has the ability to exercise professional judgment on a case-by-case basis, but it is very rare for schools to allow dependent students to not submit their parental information. This next screen is where they start to gather the parents' demographic information. They ask for parents' email address, and I would actually recommend entering the parents' email address in here and also having entered it in the beginning for the student's email address, since in most cases it's the parent who is going to be filling out the financial aid form. The household size includes all people who live with you more than 50% of the time. In the case of a divorced or separated family, if one of your children lives with you more than half the time but you do not claim the deduction, you can still count them in your household size. You can also count elderly parents who may be living with you and anyone else for whom you provide more than 50% of the support. The number in college is as of next fall and not currently, so it should be at least 1. Once you've entered that information, you click Next. When you answer your parents' marital status, the screen will expand to ask information about your parents. It will only ask the information for the parents you are using to fill out this form. In the case of divorced or separated parents, it should be your custodial parent who is submitting his or her information. If the custodial parent is remarried, it is the custodial parent and his or her new spouse whose information is being submitted on this form. In the case of joint custody or truly splitting 50% of the time with each parent, it should be the parent who provides more than 50% of the support who answers this question. They also do ask you now, as a required question, for the date of the parent's marital status. So if they're still married, they're asking for the month and year that they were married. If they're currently divorced or separated, they will ask for the date for the month and year that they were divorced or separated. You then have to enter in the date of birth, social security number, last name, and first initial for all of the parents you are entering. Next, they're going to ask for the parent's income tax information. If you are filing on an estimated basis, you will select Will File. This next page is where they start gathering your actual financial information. They'll want to know the type of tax return you filed. For most people, it would be a 1040. If you are eligible to file a 1040A or 1040EZ, it is important to know that. If you do choose that you filed a 1040, they will then ask you if you are eligible to file one of those other forms. The reason is that is one of the litmus tests to qualify for simplified needs analysis, where they do not look at your assets. So if you checked you don't know, they would consider that the same as saying no, and you would not be eligible for the simplified needs analysis. So make sure that if you are eligible to file those forms, you are aware of it. The parent's adjusted gross income, again, since most people will not have filed their actual tax return yet, we should estimate this by using your last paycheck stub from 2010 as your income amount. Make sure you subtract out any pre-tax amounts, such as 401k contributions or insurance or anything, and typically on your paycheck there'll be an asterisk next to it if it comes out pre-tax. I would go to H&R Block and click on the top of the H&R Block page, hnrblock.com, then click Tax Tips and Calculators. Use the income from your paycheck stub, and then use the interest and dividend income and itemized deductions from your 2009 return. That will help you to come up with an estimate of your AGI, and also, more importantly, an estimate of your taxes paid. If you have any questions, you can look at these boxes on the side. They are helpful in giving you the line numbers if you've already completed your return. Father and mother's income from work is actually not used to calculate your expected family contribution. Instead, it's used for calculating your Social Security allowance. And so, this information should come from Box 5 on your W-2 and not Box 1 on your W-2. Again, the information for father and mother's income from work should come from Box 5 on the W-2 or from your paycheck stub, your total year-to-date earnings. You do not subtract out any of the pre-tax deductions. Finally, they'll ask you if either of your parents is a dislocated worker. There'll be more information on that in the Help and Hints box, but if your parent has either been laid off or received a notification they will be laid off, they are considered a dislocated worker, in which case they may not look at the parent's assets in calculating your expected family contribution. In the next screen, where they ask you for the amount of your parent's income tax, that should be the amount from the H&R Block tax estimator, or it would be typically it's line 55 from your tax return or somewhere thereabouts. Again, they'll give you the exact number in the Help and Hints box. It is not the amount you had withheld from your income, but the amount you actually ended up paying total for the year. Parents' exemptions should come from the top of the 1040. These other boxes are either information that helps you in that they deduct child support paid and taxable earnings from work study from your income, or other untaxed sources of income that are added back into your income. While they do not consider the total value of your 401k or retirement plans, they do add back in the amount you contributed in the past year to your income, as if you had that amount of money to spend on a college education. Once you click one of those boxes, it will expand so you can enter in the amount. Finally, this is a new change for this year. They ask you if your parents' assets exceed a certain amount. That amount is based on the age of the older parent, and it's what they call the asset protection allowance. They only consider assets in excess of that amount. And so, in this case, we ended up clicking no. The family's assets did not exceed that amount. However, if the answer is yes, then they will ask you for your cash, savings, and checking, your investments. Investments do not count the value of the home that you live in. However, if you have a vacation home, that is counted there, net of the mortgage on the vacation home. They do not count your IRAs, 401ks, cash value of whole life insurance, or annuities. They do count stocks, bonds, and mutual funds that are not in a retirement vehicle. Then they ask for the value of the business. That would be the liquidation value. You do not, if you own a business, you don't have to enter in a value for goodwill. It would only be the net of your current assets minus your debts. Most schools exclude the value of the business unless they're doing institutional methodology. And so if you are a business owner, you can look into potential other ways of lowering your assets. That's the end of parent information. The rest of the screens are going to deal with student information. The first one is, have you completed your IRS tax return? And again, for most, we are going to select will file. If the student didn't work or didn't earn enough money to file taxes, you could have selected not going to file. In this instance, the student is going to file taxes, and so the next screen asks you for the type of tax return, which generally is a 1040 EZ, adjusted gross income from your tax return, and then this question is asked whether or not you're going to file a tax return. How much money did you earn from working? The next screen asks for the amount of your income tax, which typically if you earned less than $5,000 is 0. The amount of your income tax should come off of your tax return. Next thing it asks is for the number of exemptions, which if you're a dependent student would be 0. And then it asks the additional financial questions that it had asked the parents before. The child support paid, taxable earnings from work study, and also the untaxed income that are add backs, such as the payments to tax-deferred pension and savings plans, and other questions. At the bottom of the last page is where they had asked the student asset information. One important thing to know is that a 529 plan owned by the parents for the benefit of the student is counted as a parent asset. A 529 plan owned by a grandparent for the benefit of the student is not included in the federal methodology. So 529 assets do not count in the student's asset information. Remember that students' assets are assessed from the first dollar towards your expected family contribution. Once you're on this page, the first thing that I would do would be to view or print your FAFSA information so you can save a copy for your records. Then go on and answer the signature information. Are you a preparer? A preparer would be someone who has been paid to enter this form for you. If you're entering it for yourself or for your child, then the answer here is no. How do you want to provide your signature? I would recommend you sign electronically with your PIN. If you do not have a PIN yet, you can apply for one now. They allow you to choose your own PIN number. I recommend you choose a number that's very easy to remember. It's a 4-digit number, So I recommend you choose the last 4 numbers of your Social Security number. This PIN stays with the student throughout school and becomes his or her electronic signature. The same goes for the parent. It becomes the parent's electronic signature and is used for this student and any other children you may have who are in college now or in the future. Then I would click, then you have to agree to the terms after you've read them. And then the bottom information is the parent information. Again, I recommend signing electronically with your PIN, and if you don't have it, applying for it right now. Once you've done all of that, at the bottom, you can click Submit My FAFSA. Once you've reached this page, congratulations, you're done. Your information has been submitted to the federal processor, who will process it, if you've signed electronically, typically within 3 days, and send it to all of the schools listed on your application. You can also see an estimate of your EFC, or expected family contribution. That's the amount of money that the government and the schools will expect you to pay each year that your child is in college. And you do need to reapply for financial aid each year. So if your financial situation changes, your expected family contribution could change. If it stays fairly constant, then your EFC should stay fairly constant, unless you have an additional child who goes to school, and then they'll give you a number in college adjustment. At the bottom of this page, you can click to email yourself a copy of this confirmation. That's it. If you need to make corrections, you would go back to the fafsa.ed.gov, and then you would need to remember your PIN number to make those corrections. Remember to visit www.collegetreasure.com to help locate college-based merit scholarships and find yourself a financial safety. Also, visit our partner website, www.admissionhook.com, for helpful tips on writing the all-important college essay and to enter our $1,000 college essay scholarship. There are actually 2 ways to win our essay scholarship. One, you can submit your essay and people will vote on the essay. The top 5 essays are reviewed by our committee, and the top essay is selected for the $1,000 scholarship. Or you can create a free account and read and vote on other essays. The person who votes on the most essays between now and our next scholarship deadline of June 15th, 2011, wins a $500 scholarship.